So you want to pick up the claymore in Elden Ring. Maybe you've seen content creators like myself, or Claymore, or Veil do stuff like this, or you simply like the functionality and design of the weapon and want to learn how to use it. In this video, I'll be going over how to claymore and why it works, as well as showing off some claymore gameplay in the background. So, first and foremost, why use claymore or any greatsword at all when it's severely outclassed by curved greatsword, as well as any meta setups? The answer, of course, is fun. This thing is a roll-catching machine and the perfect medium for showing off a difference in skill when it comes to dueling. It has multiple thrusting attacks, multiple mix-ups, and a decent spread of scaling, range, and versatility. It provides a good mix of off-meta and functionality to the table, while also offering a truly unique playstyle, aside from maybe Zweihander moveset, which is very similar. When I first started putting time into claymore, I was Q-sniping claymore whenever I could, always getting absolutely bodied, but it always came down to fundamentals, reads, and timing. As such, learning the weapon to its fullest has improved my own fundamentals, reads, and timing more than any of the other setups I've since learned. Specifically, when I learned how much whiff punish potential the moveset had, it helped me bring my spacing up to par. Getting a flawless on claymore is probably the most satisfying thing in this game, especially when they're a good player like Agron who knows what they're doing. In these cases, it almost always comes down to instincts and reads. When it comes to mixing up your attacks with a claymore, there's two main roads you can take. Assuming you aren't up against a top tier player with extensive experience playing into claymore, you're going to want to condition your opponent's rolls with crouch poke, and then R2 out of a crouching state. The idea here is that you are training your opponent to roll when they see you crouch, and then switching over to a slightly slower attack that will catch that roll timing. When dealing with better players, this is rather predictable and to be expected. You're unlikely to hit an R2 that is started while your opponent is in neutral, and you leave yourself open to punishes and potentially bad trades by tunnel visioning into that strategy. Instead, in these situations, you should focus more on outspacing with your crouch pokes, as well as making use of the entire moveset. Sticking to crouch poke in R2 is likely to get you jump attacked against these players. In this duel against Echoker, who's pretty nuts with the claymore, you'll see I don't really go for the crouch R1, R2 mix-up at all. He would likely just read it each time. From previous fights with him in the past, I also know that he knows the jump timing to completely avoid a free-aimed R2 and land his own R1 while I'm in recovery. All this really means is you have to be careful with when you pick your R2s, or your claymore really becomes a double-edged sword. In this last clip, you'll notice I'm never using the same attack twice, and I'm making an effort to pull out wildly different timings for my opponent to roll, while trying to maintain pressure all the way through. This of course can be applied to all movesets, but it's especially important to the Claymore's playstyle because it forces your opponent to play reactively all the time. So on the screen here, I have the frame data for the Claymore's charged and uncharged R2s. And I'm showing this because it's the bread and butter of the Claymore right here. What I'm talking about is the R2 being an 11th frame attack on release. All this really means is that while you're charging an R2, you're able to reaction time roll catch. This provides a massive benefit as it forces good players to reaction roll all of your R2s. Another thing I wanted to point out here is the hyper armor starting on frame 24 for the full charge R2. And then I also want to just give a little comparison between the crouch poke and your standard greatsword crouch attack. The main trade-off here is a regular greatsword's crouch attack has anti-air and it comes out a frame or two faster. The claymore poke, on the other hand, can be animation blended to be just as reactable as the standard crouch R1. It won't anti-air consistently, but most importantly, it's a thrusting attack, and therefore has access to counter hits. Now, last but not least, I want to talk a little more about the R2, and specifically what you should be looking for while you're mid R2 charge. Notice how in this duel with Mugen, instead of flicking with my right stick to try to anti-air him when he goes for a neutral jump, I instead hold onto the R2 to access the stronger hyper armor that comes with a fully charged R2. This is already one of the biggest features of standard two-handed greatsword moveset, but coupled with the Claymore's thrusting R2 with access to counter hits, this is easily one of the best use cases for this tech. If you're interested in those calculations and how I knew I could tank a jump R1 there, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to explain. One more thing I want to talk about here is unlocking. Now, I won't get into the infinite benefits of playing unlocked all the time, but when it comes to Claymore, unlocking while charging your R2 is almost necessary against any good player. Because of how the tracking works in this game, if you roll in the proper direction against the locked on Claymore R2, or any thrusting attack, it will just fly right by you. Luckily for us, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you have the ability to wait until after the opponent rolls, and then use your hand-eye coordination to move the left stick in the direction that they move relative to you. It is worth noting that the R2's hitbox seems to sit closer to the right side of the weapon than the center, which is why you'll see me aiming most of my R2s well to the left of my opponent. This is someone who knows how to roll Claymore R2s. That is going to be it for today though. If this does do well, I will be continuing on with the Claymore content. But thank you for watching, hope you have a nice rest of your day.